Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another Final Cut Pro 10 tutorial. And today we're talking about my top 5 most used effects built into Final Cut Pro, no plugins required. Now, if you haven't seen my first 2 tutorials about beginner and my top 10 shortcuts, I'll leave those in the description below. But today is my 3rd video of my Final Cut series, so I hope you find it helpful. All right, before we get into the video, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is Polar. So as a person with no home, I'm always traveling to hot places while maintaining high levels of work from my laptop, whether it be in a Bali co-working space, a hostel in Sri Lanka, Airbnb or hotel, whatever the case may be. This Chill keeps me working comfortable and cool. It only requires 7.5 watts of power and can even run from my laptop or power bank. It filters the dust particles, and since it's actually winter and super dry where I am here in Montreal, it's also acting as a humidifier. Super easy to use, fill, and 1 button to start. Links in the description if you want more info on Polar. All right, let's get into the video. Effect number 1, and that is the transform tool. Now you might be thinking that's a tool, not an effect. However, you can use this tool, well, I use this tool so often to create different effects or to solve different problems. So it's both a tool and an effect creator at the same time. So let's get into some ways how we can use this transform tool to create great effects. Before we get into the effects, I just want to show you how to rotate a clip. For example, these GoPro clips, one is sideways. So I just select the clip, rotate it there, hold shift, and that will lock it into place. And that way we can rotate our clips. Drag it to fit the screen. All right, here's a previous tutorial, and as you can see, an airplane flies across the screen. Okay, this isn't really an effect, it's more of an animation, but here we go. I'll just find a PNG, so I'll type that into Google, find a PNG, click this airplane. You have to make sure that the background has that checkerboard appearance for it to be actually a PNG, because a lot of them are actually JPEGs. So we'll save that, bring it into our Final Cut event, and drag it over top of the timeline. Now we'll cut it down to the length that we want it, delete that remaining clip, and then before we hit the transform tool, we want to change our screen size. So up here, we change it 50%, that way we can drag the plane off of the screen. So now we'll hit the transform tool, drag it to the size we want, and then drag it off the screen. So there's our beginning position. At our first frame, we hit this, that is the keyframe tool. Now we play it out for as long as we want the clip to last. We drag it to our end position. There we have the full distance of our plane flying. We're gonna change the angle of our plane through rotating it. So we're gonna check the angle. Okay, we wanna rotate it more. Now bring it back to our end position. And now in the middle, we wanna place 2 more frames by right clicking there, or control clicking, or 2-finger clicking, and drag it up to the area we want the plane to fly. Same thing right here. 2-finger click, make sure that it is set to smooth by right clicking, drag it to the area we want. By dragging these bars, that can change our smoothness of the arc, or the tightness of the arc. So let's check, have a look. There we go, plane flies across the screen. So you can do this with any photo, video, icon, anything you want that appears on top of your video, like you can see here in this tutorial that I made a while ago. I've got many things sitting on top of the screen. All right, if that was too quick, let's do it once more for the text that I'm using in this video. So first I'm gonna select this solid color as the background of my text that slides into the video. Next, I'll go back to titles, find the custom title, and drag it over top of my clip. Trim it down to the same length. Now I'm adjusting the placement, the font, the size. So this is the titles that we use for this video. And here I select crop. So I will crop down the background color just to fit the text. Now clicking that grayscale, I'm going to adjust the opacity. Drag that bar down a little bit. Now I'm going to select the color, drop the shadows just to alter, again, the color slightly. Now I'm going to select the title and the background color, 2-finger click, select new compound clip, and that will flatten both of those together. Now we're going to repeat the process we did before. Go to the first frame, go to transform tool, I could drag the title off the screen, then clicking the new keyframe, then 5 keyframes over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, drag the title onto the screen. Then I'm going to do the same thing at the end. So I'll go to the end of my clip, go 5 keyframes or 5 frames back, select the keyframe, go back to the end of my clip,
and then drag it off. And this is what it looks like. The titles I'm using for this video. Shoop. Okay, last example, let's use a real world scenario, a client video that I made for Royal Caribbean's YouTube channel. And we're going down a slide with a 360 camera, and I want to line up the tubes as we make the transition. So as you can see, this transition, they're off. The two slide tubes are off. We want to line those up to make a seamless type of cooler transition. So this is the way we can use the transform tool here. So we'll back up our clip a little bit, select the keyframe, and we'll go to the end, and we'll try to line up the two tubes exactly the same. So the way we'll do that is we'll make the clip bigger, and we'll try and line them up. Let's check it here. So they're not quite aligned yet. So let's make the clip a little larger, and we'll try and make those perfectly aligned. Let's check that. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's watch it back from the top. Let's go back to the beginning of that clip and see how the transition looks. All right, looks better. Very subtle, but looks better. Now we're gonna drop a quick dissolve, across dissolve between the two slides, and it should be a nice seamless transition there. Oh, yes. Much better.
Effect number 2, and that is the focus point or vignette. So basically the point of these two tools is to draw the eye to wherever you want in the frame. So I'll give you an example now, is we can put either a focus point to draw the eye to my face, or even a vignette, and again that draws the eye inward. Here are some other clips with a focus point or a vignette that makes your video look a little better.
Okay, here's some footage from a wedding. So we have a long shot right here, no vignette, no focus point. Here's the vignette, and finally the vignette and the focus point together, making for a very dreamy, surreal feel. Now this effect is a bit strong. We want to keep it subtle, of course, but for the purposes of this video, we'll show you how we do it. So here's our clip. We want to select color board, and we want to select the color add shape mask. So there's our mask. I'm going to drag that to make it look a little bit like a vignette with the horizontal and the vertical. So that second ring that we just pulled out is the feather. So the larger we make the second ring, the smoother the feather is. So now we want to select the outside ring, and here make sure exposure is selected, and we drop down the exposure in the shadows or the total exposure, and that will give us a bit of a vignette. On the inside, we can raise the highlights if we want to make a more contrasted look. So we're going to adjust the outside again, maybe the mid-tones down a bit. Making sure that it's subtle. Here's before and after. The eye is really drawn inward. All right, next we're going to find our focus point. We can just type in focus, and there it is. Drag it on top, and of course the default is super strong. So going into our clip, we'll first adjust the height and the width. Now that we can see the effect is really strong, then we'll pull down the amount after to make it more subtle. Here's the before and after, nice and subtle, but it does make a difference.
All right, effect number 3, and I use it all the time, especially when I'm delivering client videos and there happens to be a brand or something going on in the background that the client doesn't want or can't have. For example, let's say these beats are in the frame. I didn't realize the client wants them out. I can just put the blur over top of them, and that's more acceptable now. Or let's say there's someone's face that we don't want in the video and we just want to blur that face out. Now it's a little bit more tricky when the clip is moving around, but I'll show you the basics of that masking tool. Oh, hey there.
Okay, let's go into our timeline and select the area of the clip we want to start our mask. So I cut it there. We're going to duplicate this clip and pull the same clip on top of the old one. And we're going to drag our mask on the top and our blur, so a Gaussian blur, on the bottom. So let's just select V and have a look at our blur. Yep, that's a good blur. Hit V again to bring it back. And essentially what a mask is doing is creating a hole in that top layer so that the bottom layer will appear. So once we drag the mask onto our top layer, it's going to ask you to select your control points. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to select a bunch of points where we want a hole to appear and reveal our bottom clip. So invert the mask so that we can just see the hole that's connected there. All right, now we're gonna select control points. That's our keyframe. So we're gonna select that keyframe button. Now with every frame that we move over to the right, so we move one frame over, we're gonna readjust our mask. Now this can be quite a lengthy process, so you do have to exercise a bit of patience here. So we're gonna up the feather to make it a bit smoother, and right click or two finger click on your control points and make the arc a bit smoother so it's not so sharp. Okay, we're gonna right arrow over again, and within our next frame we'll readjust our points. So notice there I'm just making it smooth again so it's not so abrupt. Right arrow over, here we go. We're gonna right arrow, that's our next frame, and adjust them again to block our face. So as we work through frame by frame, we're selecting each key point or control point and lining it up with our face. Now, if we want to select and move the whole thing, you have to select all of the control points. If you don't, it will become a disaster. So make sure that when you're moving all of the frames, like you see there, that you select all of the key points. Now, as we reveal my face again, now you can select individual key points. So just one at a time, bringing it back up frame by frame as we right arrow over. Definitely practice using masks. It won't come right away. You'll get better with time, but definitely practice more and more.
Effect number 4, I use it a lot when I put the camera on a tripod. This gives the effect that someone is actually holding the camera and filming as opposed to it just being on the tripod. Zach King, the famous Instagrammer, TikToker, video creator, uses this effect all the time. Now I'm not gonna pretend like I know how he creates his magic, but I know he does use this effect to give the illusion that someone's holding the camera. A lot of the times someone is holding the camera, but he plays a lot with the tripod and this effect. So here's an example of the intro to my Talon video. I had a bunch of masks and people coming in and out of the frame. I had the camera on a tripod, however, I used the handheld effect to give the illusion like someone was holding it so it's more realistic. And finally, the last effect, which I always use, is screen overlays.
So here are a few of the stock Final Cut lighting overlays, but to be honest, I don't love them, so I prefer to use the ones that I found.
Now, I'm not sure exactly where you can find the best free screen overlays. I do get a lot of green screens from YouTube, and I've got friends that have sent me different light flares. However, I ended up buying a light flare package because I just wanted a professional set, which ended up being quite expensive. But no matter where you find your film burns, your lights, your flares, all these types of ideas, once you have them, then you can just add them as screen overlays in your video.
So you bring the overlay into your event, drag it over top of your clip, then just trim it down and speed it up to exactly what you want over your clip. Once that's ready, here in the blend mode, compositing mode, you select screen. And that will filter off all the black and just your effect will appear over top. Now I'm gonna pull down the opacity because I think that effect is too intense. And now I'm gonna change the white balance because I think it's too blue. So if I go into the color grading area, bring the master or maybe the highlights a little bit warmer, that will appear like a more warmer sunset vibe there. That's better.
So that is it for my top 5 most used effects that are not plugins, built in right into Final Cut Pro. All right, stay tuned for my next tutorial. It'll be my top 5 plugins for Final Cut Pro. And that'll be my favorite free and purchased plugins, which I use all the time and helps a lot with my editing. Also, there'll be plenty more travel content, other tutorials coming up on the channel. To stay up to date with all my content, make sure you hit that notification bell. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you aren't already, and I'll catch you in the next video.